All right, today I'm going to be showing you two different camera arms. I've got the HME arm here and then the Muddy camera arm. And I'm just going to kind of talk through both of them and show you the setup for both and also some pros and cons to each one. And I'll also give you a third option in there. And I'll link to all of them below in the description. You can check each one out. But these are the two that I have personally used, and I'll just kind of talk through them. This was the first one that I got, the HME, and a good entry level for just getting started. And I did upgrade to the Muddy this last year, but I'm going to talk about, there was actually some things that I still like better about this one. And obviously it is much more affordable. So depending on what you're looking for, could still be a great option. So I wouldn't count it out necessarily. So the first thing I'll mention is the quality. Obviously this one's a little flimsier, just a little lighter. If you got a big camera and you got a heavy setup, it might just not be quite as durable. But if you're just using, pretty basic, simple setup, works well. You can use a phone on here as well if you got the right attachment, or your camera itself can go directly on it. But yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty cheap. The movement of the arm is pretty choppy. It's not super smooth, and you can try kind of adjusting the bolt on it to make it a little looser movement. But again, that is one of the downfalls. I would say the biggest upgrade to going to something like the Muddy, which I'll show you in a second, is going to be just the smoothness. Going up and down with the camera arm is just really sticky. The movement left to right's not too bad, but yeah, going up and down is definitely the worst. And again, you can try loosening it, but then the problem is your camera weight will actually drop it like that. And so you kind of have to keep it tight, and then trying to move it even as smooth as you can. It's very choppy, which obviously with videoing you don't want. So that is going to be one of the biggest things with this. But yeah, the other things that you might want to consider, and one of the reasons this could still be a great option for you, is just the ease of use. This is obviously super light. This is much clunkier and heavier and just harder to pack in your bag and take out into the woods even, but also getting set up. So I'm gonna show you the setup for both, and I'm gonna time both of them just so you can see the difference as well, because that does come into play, and that is one thing I miss about this camera arm. And there we're done. That was pretty quick, as you can tell. And so you're all set up, ready to go. One nice thing is you do have a couple hooks on here for if you want to hang a bag or hang anything from those on it as well. But yeah, pretty easy, pretty simple to get set up. I should mention, worth noting, you do have to screw into the tree with this. So if you're on public land, and depending on, I guess, the state, but in Michigan, you're not allowed to actually screw things into the trees. So that could be a factor as well in deciding what you're gonna go with. So just keep that in mind also. But yeah, pretty easy as far as the setup. One of the best parts about this, and also again, the lightness and just easy to pack. So one of the downfalls is going to be it's a single arm and doesn't have a lot of range. You're definitely not going to get any shots around your body if something's up to the opposite side of you. Your camera's just not going to be able to get it. So you're only going to be able to get stuff out in front of you and to the side or behind, and that's pretty much it. You're pretty limited as far as what you can capture in that way. And again, the choppiness is probably one of the worst parts with this one. Usually what I would do is I would try to just get it to the height that I mainly wanted it set, and then I would kind of just direct this way or move to left to right and try not to have to do this very much, because again, it just makes the video very choppy and chunky. So all right, let's do the next one. Now before I do this one, I actually will just mention it is much more difficult than that one to set up still. But the first time I did it, it was even tougher because I didn't do it quite right. And so I'm just gonna show you that. Probably you wouldn't make this mistake, But you have to assemble this. And so I had assembled it all before the season began, months in advance, because I'd gotten it at like Christmas before the next season. I put it all together and then packed it away. Totally forgot, kind of how it worked when I got it out for the first season last year. So the first time going in the woods, I just had this whole chunky piece and I'm trying to put it onto the tree, and it was very difficult. And I was about to return it after that first hunt. Come to realize you can take this part out. And so that's how you should do it. Start with this, obviously still in your pack. It's going to make it much easier when you're just working with this to get the straps on the tree first. So that is just something worth noting. Doing it the right way helps. All right, so a couple things. Another issue you could run into with this one, obviously with that one, doesn't matter how big the tree is that you're in. I was having trouble. It really took longer than probably even what I'll actually put for the timer, because I couldn't even get around this tree. I couldn't reach around it to get the strap around. So I had to set the strap down and walk around to the other side of the tree, which obviously you're not gonna be able to do in a stand. So a limitation is going to be the width of the tree that you're sitting in. If you're in a smaller tree, it obviously won't be nearly as hard to get around. But yeah, that could play into it as well for deciding what you're going to use, depending on what kind of trees you like to sit in, I suppose. So this isn't like a huge tree, but if you can't really reach around it, it's going to be tough. So one thing to consider there, this part, you'll notice there is kind of a screw, but it's not for screwing into the tree. It's more so just to you can tighten it or loosen it to change the angle depending on how the tree is. If it's not sitting super good against the tree, this part, super sturdy. That is one of the best parts about this. It's going to be super sturdy. Obviously going to be really good for if you got a bigger setup as well. But then additionally, super smooth. I don't know how they do it, but I mean, you can, when you move it up and down, it's like you can't even make it choppy if you wanted to. It's so smooth. And so that is really, really nice. And then it does have a little bit more length. It's still only a 2-arm attachment. It's actually about the same length as this one. So you're still not going to be, wrapping around your body. One thing I don't necessarily know how I feel about is this part of the arm doesn't really move much. I could probably tighten this down a little bit, but mostly it moves like this, and I would have to actually kind of hold this part in order to move this part. So I don't know. That's one thing to consider. And again, it might be that I have this just a little tight on here, so it could probably be adjusted. You can adjust how loosely it goes up and down by just twisting the handle. If you tighten it, you can make it stay where it won't move, which is really nice. And yeah, overall, again, a little higher quality, more sturdy, way more smooth. I think doing a complete comparison, you're getting more durability with this. This is a little more flimsy, way lighter, way easier to pack in your pack, and also way easier to get set up. This has some limitations with the width of the tree, as well as just a little more difficult to set up and take down in general, and definitely clunkier, bigger, but way smoother as well for what you're trying to capture. And you have to decide based on the pricing for both. Again, I'll link to each of them below and you can compare the two. This one is cheaper by quite a bit. Another option you have, if you want to go up a step from this, is a 4th arrow tree arm, which again is going to be a little more expensive, but definitely higher quality. Not one I've jumped to yet, but it would be kind of my next jump up if I was going to even go a step up from this one. So we'll see. I might end up doing that eventually. I'm torn on these two at this point, which one I would recommend. I think starting out, for sure, go with this one. And then if you get to a point where, you know, you're wanting to jump up mainly the quality of your camera and you've got a little bigger setup, this is going to probably be a little bit on the flimsy side for that. And then also just the choppiness. That's going to be the other biggest downfall. But it is easy. And I think there'd be times where I would just prefer to still have this and take it instead of this one. And so it just kind of depends on what you're looking for and what your setup is. But either can do the job. Ultimately, you can capture stuff and get a great video having either one. And with this one thing I did do as well a lot is anytime things were kind of choppy with transitions, I would just cut that little part out when I had to move the camera up or down, and then just skip to the part where you've got the deer in focus and in the video. So, you can always work around it as well. But yeah, those are the two. I can't say I would recommend one over the other. Again, like I said, sometimes I think usually I would take this one out, the muddy. But sometimes it's also just a little cumbersome. And if I'm just going for easy, this isn't a bad option to still have. So hopefully that helps you make a decision for yourself and what you're looking for. All right, good luck out there this season.